Hey everyone, welcome back to another video and Happy New Year. We are back with another update, and when I say we, of course, I mean myself and Corey. Say hi, Corey.
Hey, how's it going?
So let's just dive into the game and I can show everyone some of the improvements we've already made. Everyone's already seen this. I can hold the button to skip, as you all know. So right off the bat, one of the improvements we made is now not only can you hold down and press attack to do the uppercut, but also up, since the default controls are for two buttons, one button being jump and one being attack. Now if you hold up and press attack, you can also do the uppercut that way. And the nice thing about that is you can even hold up on an angle, so you can even hold up on an angle to walk forward and then just press attack, keeping your thumb on up forward. So it makes it foolproof that you'll always be able to do the uppercut whenever you want, whereas when you hold down, if you accidentally hold down in an angle, he's just going to do the low attack. Like that. You have to hold perfectly straight down and press attack to do the uppercut from the down angle. And then the other difference, obviously, is in other levels, like level 2, for example, you raise your gauntlet in the air and make lightning bolts happen. But the problem with that is your character obviously stays on the ground in that case. But the nice thing about the uppercut attack is not only does it attack enemies that are above you, but it also brings the character up in the air in case there's a power-up flying by overhead.
In other levels, the magic power may not always be an uppercut.
Exactly.
And playing ourselves and getting patron feedback, we felt that needing the uppercut most of the time and not having to drain your magic doing it was a good idea. It felt right. So.
Yeah. So the other thing that I started doing is adding a few missing sound effects that I noticed. One of them is simply the roll, and it might be hard to hear because I set the volume low so I wouldn't blow your eardrums out, viewers. But when he rolls now, it does a nice little tumbling on the ground sound. And then if I hit an enemy with my overhead air bash, there's actually a big, almost explosive whack sound that sends them flying out of the air.
That should add a lot of satisfaction to that, because I always felt before that there was something
you
missing.
Didn't feel
I
the
couldn't
connection.
Quite place it though. Yeah,
exactly.
That must have been it. Yeah.
And we're definitely going to do another pass of perfecting the sound effects once the real music is in, because depending on the volume and the frequencies that the actual music uses, it would be a good idea to tweak sound effects to make sure they're not too loud or too drowned out, or a sort of pitch that just doesn't go well with the music. Definitely an improvement for when we get on that YouTube channel, which is all the sooner now that we're really just waiting for final feedback from the Patreon patrons that got a chance to play it. And Corey and I are going to do a scrum soon. We got great feedback, including from Corey, who hadn't played the boss fight anywhere near as much as I had, which was great because, as is typically the case, the programmer gets way too good at it from the millions of hours of testing while programming it, and just because I know exactly how the behaviors are. So it's always critical to get new players testing your game and anything you change and add to the game and the gameplay, because the actual programmer is the worst person to decide if the game is too easy, too hard, or easy to figure out and all that stuff. So we're basically we already discussed a lot of the current feedback. So I think we're in really good shape. We're going to be able to really nail the boss fight. And the great thing is what's there, like I've seen footage of 2 different players playing, and all of the patrons that have played, there were no bugs to report in the boss fight. It's all really solid, which is really exciting given the complexity. So it's just a matter of tweaking the recovery time the boss has after doing an attack so that you have an opening to counterattack, and how long their tell is before they do an attack. All those sorts of things are very easy tweaks that will really help perfect the balance of the gameplay. We also added in lots of nice cheats, so let me actually get myself hurt a little bit so I can show. There we go. There we go. So I can just press the left shoulder button to get back my health points whenever I want. So that way when the YouTube personality is actually playing the game, we can make sure they don't get too frustrated or have to replay the first level a million times if they really hadn't had a chance to practice beforehand. And similarly, I'm already at full magic, but the right shoulder button currently increases my magic power level by 1. I think that is it for the changes in level 1, but level 2 we made a lot of progress on. We wanted the YouTuber to be able to get into a good part of at least what we have so far for level 2 after the level 1 boss fight. And there were huge imbalances. We never got to that point with level 2 yet, so Corey and I had a scrum, and he had a great idea for a way to fix the balance of the magic. The problem with it was at first it started too weak, and then once it reached a certain power level, you could pretty much spam it and it would just wipe out enemies low and high across a giant chunk of the screen centered for the player. Let's see, so we'll go right to level 2. And so before, when you jumped up and I have to cheat and give myself magic. There we go. But so before, when you jumped and then did the drop kick move with down and attack, it would create 2 whole screen height lightning bolts that would spread out to the left and right. And that just was way too powerful. And Corey had the great idea. You're doing a ground stomp attack. That should really do something that spreads out on the ground, not covers the whole screen up into the sky. So I quickly made some nice little electrical effects that specifically go across the screen like that. And then the uppercut is where you're going to get, let's see, the uppercut move is where you're going to get the lightning bolts that spread across, go as high as the top of the screen. And then the other nice thing that we did is we made it so that lightning, you can see there it doesn't go across the whole screen, so they're not powerless, but also it doesn't kill them with one hit like it used to, like the humanoid enemies. They just get bumped back, so there's still a problem. And usually, once you've done it once, you can't just spam it and do it a second time and kill them, like I actually have to fight them. So you could see, it's not a pushover now, even when you're pretty powerful. And I wasn't trying to play, I was just trying to demonstrate, so it's not as hard as I made it look. It's much more balanced now. I still have not, you see how 2 owls came at the exact moment from either side?
Yeah, I noticed we used to long ago have that problem of the explosive stuff being too difficult in this level, but I noticed like after, I hadn't really played level 2 as much until recently, and last time I was going through, I was realizing that stuff wasn't nearly as bad. I mean, part of it was the placement of the enemies, but also, being able to hit the explosives away from you and things like that. There's a lot you can do to dodge it. So it does add that extra challenge to the air enemies that wasn't in level 1. I think it's feeling pretty nice now, myself, But,
just that one spot early on where you get an owl from both sides simultaneous is too much for the beginning. So I'll definitely fix that. But otherwise it's really, really shaping up nicely. And also we added there was already the stalagmites on the bottom, but we added stalactites up top where there's these more cave wall areas in the background to help keep it more interesting. And the other thing I did to improve make the explosions of the sort of grenades they throw, the Molotov cocktail type things, less annoying and more fair, is only the first frame of the... It's a very short explosion. I think it's like a 4-frame explosion, or maybe even 3. So before, even the last frame of it, I think, would hurt you, or certainly the second one. So I made it so like the explosion really has to happen right on top of you for it to hurt you. That way, if you're up in the air and you land down into an explosion that had already started, it's no longer going to hurt you. So that made it feel a lot more natural. See there, it was like just happening, so that's fine. But in general, it makes it a lot harder to land down in an explosion that by that point shouldn't hurt you. I can cheat too. So, and you could see I added other sound effects. There's a pretty funny angry goat ram kind of sound when the ram men get hit.
Right.
And then
I think they had the bird before, and it wasn't or whatever, it wasn't right. But
And then aside from just general bug fixes, and then that we've already done with the boss fight and the tweaks we're going to do, I also noticed several missing sound effects during the boss fight intro, and it really made a big difference getting those in there too. So just simple things, like I won't describe it too much, but like when the enemy appears, it was too silent, and then the enemy does something cool with the weapon they have, and that was silent too. And like we said, that just... it's really missing something when it's happening to dead silence. So the sound really helps make it much more impactful.
This is meant to be, like, right now, like, a solid sort of demo of level 2. Like, we eventually plan on making it as dynamic as level 1, and that it'll have, like, sub-bosses and things like that.
Exactly.
But presently, you know, we have our current set of enemies, and we just wanted it to be a quick little romp, you know?
Yeah. Basically, we wanted people to see how drastically different the different environments and your magic would be. Yeah. And this really gets that point across well. And when we're on the YouTube channel while the person is playing, we can explain that every level is going to have its little additional gimmick and its like little sub-boss areas where the camera locks and you have to get through that little slightly harder segment. And we already have a really cool thing planned for this level, if you recall.
Yes. It's going to be pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah. So that, but yeah, that won't be done in time for this upcoming YouTube show. That'll be a nice surprise for after that. So there was one other thing that we've done that the patrons have already got to see, and that's after you beat the boss, at first the build was just going right from there right into level 2, and it really seemed too quick and too kind of jarring, and there was no explanation for how your player got from a very warm looking wilderness to suddenly an extremely like Arctic looking region. So I had the time because I was kind of blocked on a lot of stuff with those major construct and spriter plugin bugs, which are all fixed now, like I said. So I thought I have the time, so I'll just make a screen that Corey and I came up with during one of our scrums. So I'll show that to you now. I'll actually run it. As you can see, everyone, after you beat that level, there's actually this non-player character that's important to the story who you saw in the intro that pulls the hero aside and says, I have a special mission for you. You could see him in his tower or wherever he is, and you could see that he can keep an eye on what this hero is doing. And you can see the hero actually going to the new environment, and that's just a nice simple looping scroll and looping walk animation, but we'll change the actual environment every time to make a nice transition and sort of give you a hint of the next environment that you're going to be playing in, and it just continues to carry the plot, and it's just a really quick sort of loading screen after the end of each boss fight and to introduce the new level. And now on to MetroSiege. So mostly, there's not been a ton of changes on the MetroSiege side that people would notice. A lot of bug fixing and optimizing still going on, or that has been done, I should say. Tweaking and optimizing every spriter file, not only to improve things, getting rid of everywhere where there was actually blank pixel gaps and joints of enemies during quick frames, but also finding every way possible to free up memory without visually impacting everything like the character animations and background to make room for the additional code for new features and for the last remaining sound effects that are being added, which, as we keep saying, sound really adds a lot. The sound design is so important to a game. Anyway, so let's get into gameplay. And remind me, Corey, to not play all the way up to the boss fight.
Right, yeah.
But so the thing still being done, or that needs to still be done in time for the YouTube show, is the level 1 boss fight music isn't done yet. But otherwise, things are really solid. I had mentioned before I wanted to get in graffiti and litter. And at least enough is there now. You can see there's some cracks in the wall there and the foundation right in front of where I am, down by my knees there. And then there's like a little piece of paper on the ground there, and there's other litter elsewhere. This, where you walk out of at the beginning, or right here, this entrance, the MMA gym. This is an MMA gym where the local police officers, a lot of them train. So there's 5-0 graffiti on the wall, letting other criminals know, don't go in there unless you want to be surrounded by off-duty cops. But there's other more, bigger, more recognizable graffiti, like right there, someone's name on it. That actually happens to be the name of my son. 68K there, there's a lot of retro and Amiga specific graffiti in there. As I had mentioned in one of the past videos, that we're actually letting patrons decide a lot of the what a lot of the graffiti is going to say. So someone recommended 68K, which is based on the main processor, the Motorola 68000.
Right. Yeah.
And but there's other ones which I'll show a little bit of in level 2, which I'll skip to so that we don't get to the boss fight. But I want to show a little bit more of the graffiti in level 1 first. Oh yeah, and you can see the cracks in the sidewalk there. That is also new. And this is one of the first really specific Amiga kind of Easter egg graffiti, because no non-Amigan would know what the heck this means. But you can see on the wall there it says "not again," but it's separated by green letters and blue, and if you read just the green it says "no AGA." And in the Amiga, the first generation was called the original chipset, and that had pretty severe limitations, certainly to modern standards. A max typically of 32, or in a special mode 64 colors, during games at least. They had other fancy modes to get even more colors on screen, but they weren't really great especially for action games. But anyway, the point is, it was and is a very healthy demo scene in Amiga, and many years after the launch of the Amiga, and many years of there just being the regular chipset, they eventually released the Advanced Graphic Architecture chipset, or AGA, which was a lot more powerful. So in the demo scene, a lot of demo makers still wanted to show off what they could do with the original chipset. So in their demo, very often they would put the message "no AGA," bragging, "we're doing all this cool stuff on this demo," without using the more advanced graphic chips that the newer Amigas had at the time. And this particular game runs on classic Amigas and does not put use to any of the enhanced graphic features of the AGA chipset. So that's a really specific Amiga graffiti. Sorry, non-Amigans, to go so in-depth, but you could see also there's more litter there, and more cracked sidewalks, and then more graffiti in that little walled-off area there. So I won't go much farther. I don't think there's really any other additional graffiti in this level, so I will quit out of level 1 and skip right to level 2. So you can see there's like spray paint and generic graffiti on that column there. There we go. So you probably noticed a skip there, everybody, and then I'm trying to find a good spot. Okay, so you can see there's actual passengers riding the train, some of which seem to be quite concerned with what's happening outside outside the window. And I'll pause it so we can see some more of them. And more Amiga Easter egg stuff. The Amiga had a bunch of custom chips to handle graphics and sound, and a lot of the colorful graffiti on these trains that pass by is actually the names of the different chips. And in the case of copper, the copper or coprocessor was used more often than not on the Amiga to change a particular color as it goes down the screen. So it could create gradients going down the screen. So the coloring of the graffiti matches the theme of what that could do. And then Paula was the name of the sound chip of the Amiga. So you see there Paula, and it's got musical notes and stuff like that. But aside from that, there's just the stuff we can't show you yet in MetroSiege. There's all the boss related stuff. So that's about all we can show you for how the MetroSiege build is shaping up. But basically everything's cleaner, everything's more optimized. We've got in graffiti, in litter, and we're hoping to get in a tiny bit more, especially down the bottom of this level, to make it look less clean and less empty down here. Oh yeah, and the last thing that's been added to MetroSiege, which is a really nice addition, is now when you die, like pretty much every other beat-em-up game ever, Now you can actually pick which character you want to start playing again with after you've lost your third life. So that is it for our own progress. So now the big thing is we need to actually contact the YouTube channel person that we keep talking about, and we need to make the final changes and tweaks to the boss fight. And any day now we need to contact those musicians again and get everything ready for that big announcement we're going to make during that YouTube channel once we appear. Oh, and then one last thing, this is related. In the last update video, you saw that we are now using for MetroSiege the retro animator tool. And the creator, whose name is Eric Hogan, he also creates has already released, I think people can already access and use the current version of the Scorpion engine, which is cool because it's a modern authoring tool that lets you work on a Windows system in the very comfortable modern environment, but it lets you actually create games that run on classic Amigas. I won't say too much more about that because I don't want to steal any other announcements that Eric Hogan might make in the future, but it's really shaping up a very cool authoring system, very easy to use. And so again, he's the guy that made the retro animator tool for us to drastically improve our workflow for all the character and object animations in MetroSiege. But he's also soon will be releasing that to the public as well, which is really cool. So keep an eye out in the description of this video. I'll put a link to his Facebook page for the Scorpion engine. And then once he releases the animation tool, we'll put a post of that somewhere as well. Certainly, at least we'll share that on our own Facebook page. So keep an eye on that. You can see some of the games that some Amigans are making with the Scorpion engine already. And if I scroll down, that also is... So you can make a lot of different types of games. The Scorpion engine started as an engine to make very Super Nintendo Zelda style games, but it evolved and now you can do like overhead and side-scrolling action games, and he just recently added some really nice slope support, and I'm holding out. Once he gets Parallax on there, I'll be super tempted to use the Scorpion engine for a future project. But very cool stuff, and keep an eye out for the animation tool. Oh, and we just remembered one other thing, so we're just going to splice this in somewhere in the video. But we've just started working on getting on other social media platforms, so keep an eye out on our website, and up here will be updated with additional social media accounts. So if you already have an account on any of those other social media alternatives, now you'll be able to follow all of our important updates on those particular platforms as well. So that will be it for this update, and thanks everyone for watching.
If you enjoy our content and want to keep up to date on our games, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, if you want to support our projects, consider becoming a patron. The link's in the description, and we'll see you soon.